reaction of phosgene with bisphenol A to form polycarbonates. 8. Phosgenation of diamines gives diisocyanate, like toluene isocyanate, TDI, methylene dipanyl isocyanate, MDI, hexamethylene isocyanate, HDI, and isofuran isocyanate, IPD. In these conversions, phosgene is used in excess to increase yield and minimize side reactions. The phosgene excess is separated during fuel cut-off resulting end products and recycled into the process, with any remaining phosgene decomposed in water using activated carbon as the catalyst. Isocyanates are precursors to polyurethanes. More than 90% of the phosgene is used in these processes, with the biggest production units located in the United States, Texas and Louisiana, Germany, Shanghai, Japan, and South Korea. The most important producers are Dow Chemical, Covstro, and BASF. Phosgene is also used to produce monoisocyanates, used as pesticide precursors, for example methyl isocyanate, MIC. Aside from the widely used reactions described above, phosgene is also used to produce acyl chlorides from carboxylic acids. Rc equals O plus COCl2 Rc equals O, Cl plus HCl plus CO2. For this application, thionyl chloride is commonly used instead of phosgene. Laboratory uses. The synthesis of isocyanates from amines illustrates the electrophilic character of this reagent and its use in introducing the equivalent synth CO2 plus SAD-18, RNH2 plus COCl2 Rn equals C equals O plus 2HCl, where R equals alkyl, aryl. Such reactions are conducted on laboratory scale in the presence of a base such as pyridine that neutralize ester hydrogen chloride side product. Phosgene is used to produce chloroformates such as benzyl chloroformate RO plus COCl2 ROC equals O, Cl plus K. In these syntheses, phosgene is used in excess to prevent formation of the corresponding carbonate ester. With amino acids, phosgene, or its trimer, reacts to give amino acid N-carboxyl hydrides. More generally, phosgene acts to link two nucleophiles by a carbonyl group. For this purpose, alternatives to phosgene such as carbonyl diimidazole, CDI, are safer, albeit expensive. 19. CDI itself is prepared by reacting phosgene with imidazole. Phosgene is stored in metal cylinders. In the US, the cylinder valve outlet is a tapered thread known as CGA 160 that is used only for phosgene. Alternatives to phosgene. In the research laboratory, due to safety concerns, phosgene nowadays finds limited use in organic synthesis. A variety of substitutes have been developed, notably trichloromethyl chloroformate, diphosgene, a liquid at room temperature, and bis-trichloromethyl carbonate, triphosgene, a crystalline substance. 20. Other reactions. Phosgene reacts with water to release hydrogen chloride and carbon dioxide COCl2 plus H2O CO2 plus 2. Analogously, upon contact with ammonia, it converts to urea COCl2 plus 4 NH3 CO, NH2, 2 plus 2, NH4, Cl halide exchange with nitrogen trifluoride and aluminium tribromide gives COF2 and COBr2 respectively. 8. Chemical warfare. U.S. Army phosgene identification poster from World War II. It is listed on Schedule 3 of the Chemical Weapons Convention. All production sites manufacturing more than 30 tons per year must be declared to the OPCW. 21. Although less toxic than many other chemical weapons such as sarin, phosgene is still regarded as a viable chemical warfare agent because of its simpler manufacturing requirements when compared to that of more technically advanced chemical weapons such as Daban, a first-generation nerve agent. 22. Phosgene was first deployed as a chemical weapon by the French in 1915 World War I. 23. It was also used in a mixture with an equal volume of chlorine, with the chlorine helping to spread the denser phosgene. 24. 25. Phosgene was more potent than chlorine, though some symptoms took 24 hours or more to manifest. Following the extensive use of phosgene during World War I, it was stockpiled by various countries. 26. 27. 28. Phosgene was then only infrequently used by the Imperial Japanese Army against the Chinese during the Second Sino-Japanese War. 29. Gas weapons, such as phosgene, were produced by the IJA's Unit 731. Toxicology and safety. Phosgene is an insidious poison as the odor may not be noticed and symptoms may be slow to appear. 30. The odor detection threshold for phosgene is 0.4 ppm, 4 times the threshold limit value, time-weighted average. Its high toxicity arises from the action of the phosgene on the O, NH2 and Sh groups of the proteins in pulmonary alveoli, the site of gas exchange, respectively forming ester, amide and the ester functional groups in accord with the reactions discussed above. This results in disruption of the blood-air barrier, eventually causing pulmonary edema. The extent of damage in the alveoli does not primarily depend on phosgene concentration in the inhaled air, with the dose, amount of inhaled phosgene, being the critical factor. 31. Dose can be approximately calculated as concentration duration of exposure. 31. 32. Therefore, persons in workplaces where there exists risk of accidental phosgene release usually wear indicator badges close to the nose and mouth. 33. Such badges indicate the approximate inhaled dose which allows for immediate treatment if the monitored dose rises above safe limits. 33. In case of low or moderate quantities of inhaled phosgene, the exposed person is to be monitored and subjected to precautionary therapy, then released after several hours. For higher doses of inhaled phosgene, above 150 ppm min, a pulmonary edema often develops which can be detected by X-ray imaging on regressive blood oxygen concentration. Inhalation of such high doses can eventually result in fatality within hours up to 2-3 days of the exposure. The risk connected to a phosgene inhalation is based not so much on its toxicity, which is much lower in comparison to modern chemical weapons like sarin or taban, but rather on its typical effects. The affected person may not develop any symptoms for hours until an edema appears, at which point it could be too late for medical treatment to assist. 34. Nearly all fatalities as a result of accidental releases from the industrial handling of phosgene occurred in this fashion. On the other hand, pulmonary edemas treated in a timely manner usually heal in the mid and long term, without major consequences once some days or weeks after exposure have passed. 35. 36. Nonetheless, the detrimental health effects on pulmonary function from untreated, chronic low-level exposure to phosgene should not be ignored, although not exposed to concentrations high enough to immediately cause an edema. Many synthetic chemists, for example Leonidas Zavas, working with the compound were reported to experience chronic respiratory health issues and eventual respiratory failure from continuous low-level exposure. If accidental release of phosgene occurs in an industrial or laboratory setting, it can be mitigated with ammonia gas, in the case of liquid spills, for example of diphosgene or phosgene solutions, an absorbent and sodium carbonate can be applied. 37. Accidents. The first major phosgene-related incident happened in May 1928 when 11 tons of phosgene escaped from a war surplus store in central Hamburg. 38. 300 people were poisoned, of whom 10 died. 38. In the second half of 20th century several fatal incidents implicating phosgene occurred in Europe, Asia and the US. Most of them have been investigated by authorities and the outcome made accessible to the public. For example, Phosgene was initially blamed for the Bhopal disaster, but investigations proved methyl isocyanate to be responsible for their numerous poisonings and fatalities. Recent major incidents happened in January 2010 and May 2016. An accidental release of phosgene gas at a DuPont facility in West Virginia killed one employee in 2010. 39. The U.S. Chemical Safety Board released a video detailing the accident. 40. 6 years later, a phosgene leak occurred in a BASF plant in South Korea, where a contractor inhaled a lethal dose of phosgene. 41. 2023 Ohio train derailment. A freight train carrying vinyl chloride derailed and burned in East Palestine, Ohio, releasing phosgene and hydrogen chloride into the air and contaminating the Ohio River. 42. See also: carbonyl bromide, carbonyl fluoride, oxalyl chloride, thiophosgene, thionyl chloride, perfluoroisobutane, bis, trifluoromethyl, disulfide. References.
Gut. Let's stop the video.